My role as a member of the City Council is to be a legislator who is representing my district, District B, but also working with other members of the legislative body to make decisions for the greater good of the entire community. So for me, that means advocating for our issues in District B and representing the identities and the thoughts and concerns of the people that live in my district, my constituents, but also looking holistically at the entire district, the entire city rather, and understanding what those concerns are in other districts by working with those other legislators. So the first thing is we know that our city council members have the real glamorous work of thinking about infrastructure. Whenever a water main breaks, whenever there's a pothole, whenever anyone has a concern with their water bill, you're the person they're going to call. And I need to be available to address those concerns. But what I should also be doing is maybe tabulating how often we're getting certain issues so I can address them with whatever city body needs to address those things so we can have less of those things, mitigate those issues. And work also, if there's ideas that are working in my district, be able to suggest those things to other districts as well. That's a great question. I work for the public library, and as a volunteer a few years ago, I was able to help support our millage when we were going out for levy. And that meant that I needed to understand exactly how the library works. So I did study that budget, and I've actually studied our budget to some degree for 2018 for the city. But where I've actually learned to read a balance sheet was in the junior league, which is operating with about $500,000 cash, but $1 million when you include our assets. But that's been a great asset to learn from the junior league, which is all about teaching women leadership. And that might not be as much money as the city, but I'm a quick study and I understand the skeletal of how it works already. We need to consider a moratorium on sprawl. We annex in a lot of property thinking that because we're being donated or it's being gifted to us as far as the infrastructure, the streets, the drainage, the water, sewer, that we don't have to worry about maintaining it for 20 to 30 years. But we're not putting away money for the deferred maintenance of those items. So I think we need to reevaluate our philosophies and our practices on those things first. And then from there, I think that we need to look at, as far as our immediate issues, we do need to look at our downtown infrastructure. We need to look at how many buildings are empty, that are available, that have issues where they cannot be sold. And we need to try to support helping the people that own those buildings so that they can get those buildings ready for sale so that they can actually be contributing back to the city. And as far as our general public, especially in my district, I know that one thing is Zeke Street. We need $1.1 million that's been budgeted for Zeke Street that needs to be repaired, and we need to figure out why that discussion keeps getting tabled as one specific thing in my district. I know that everyone has the concerns about our city streets. That's one of the #1 things you hear when you're out campaigning, is that streets are just still in disrepair. I know we're doing a lot of work toward that, but I think that we need to be very transparent about what the schedule of concerns is for that. I think the #1 thing that the city council can do is create an environment that is ready for a community to come in and build. Entrepreneurs don't need the city to teach them how to do business. They just need an environment that is free of as much bureaucracy as possible, that has zoning rules and regulations that are clear and easy to understand. I think the first thing that we should be thinking about doing is working with our Metropolitan Planning Commission and property standards, building codes, and engineering to create checklists so people know exactly what they're getting into when it's time for them to come to us and say, hey, I'm ready to open a business. I think that we have to create that environment, an environment that is clean, safe, and welcoming with limited bureaucracy so that people feel that we are welcoming to business. There should simply be a legislation about conflict of interest, and it should already exist through our ethics codes, that if you are running an entity that is a nonprofit while you are also sitting as a legislator, that you will not benefit in any way from funds that are controlled by the city. As an example, I am a member of a new group called Reform Shreveport, and we are not a nonprofit yet, but we will be. And while I am a member of that group, we would not be asking for financial support from the city. We have so many different bodies that are set up by appointments. The library is one, the Metropolitan Planning Commission is another, Historic Preservation Commission. I think that it's more than just credentials. You may be a historian, but do you have a holistic idea about what economic development, what other contributing factors go into historic preservation? I would want to look at a person's resume thoroughly and know that they are a well-rounded being, as well as having their credentials, before I supported the recommendations of the mayor. Of course, I would like to believe that the mayor is also going to thoroughly vet anyone that he or she puts forward, so that a lot of that job is done and there wouldn't be a lot of micromanagement in place. I think that we're doing an okay job with that as far as my particular district, but I might be biased because I feel like we have an excellent city council person for District B right now. I think that one is approaching things with an open mind, being ready to collaborate, not ever walking into circumstances with other governing bodies with an idea of exactly what should happen. You may have some ideas, but you should always be first willing to understand where someone else is coming from, what their ideas are, so that we can all move forward on one goal. I think that knowing what the first goals are, what the major mission is of any project, should be first and foremost. The number one thing is serving the public. What's going to be in the best interest of the public? What's going to do the most good for the most people for the longest time? And if we're all thinking in those terms and not thinking about what's going to serve our own self-interest, it should be easy to work with any governing body for the betterment of our community. Our issues are crime and infrastructure, and those two things kind of play together. We are seeing our citizens move further away from the city core, and that's spreading all of our resources thin because the population number isn't changing. Same number of citizens, more land space. We are going to have to work together to mitigate that. We have to self-correct and we have to self-heal. And I think that my job is to help us raise our capacity to do that. And my goal would be to look at best practices, to look beyond our traditional way of thinking.
Yes. Yep, we're good now.
Our biggest issues with the city right now are infrastructure and crime. And those two things play together because we have a population that is spreading across more land area, but our number of people has not changed, so the number of resources to take care of those people hasn't changed. So we need to support our police and support the leadership and make sure they have everything that they need as far as resources. And beyond that, we need to look at preventives for crime, which would be education, workforce development, and mental health, access to mental health. We can either do that by supporting the organizations that are already working toward that and help them to increase their collective impact, or we can bring in social workers that are working directly for the city. I don't think that we can afford to do that right now, so I think we need to come up with creative solutions to get to that end. Beyond the issues with crime that we can fix through education and prevention, workforce development, and creating opportunities for more entrepreneurs to come in and create more jobs, we need to look at our infill situation. I think that we should be incentivizing infill so that we are not spreading ourselves so thin. And that goes along with my other answer about sprawl. There's opportunities for us to grow, not inwardly, but to look at these opportunities that are happening within our city core right now before we look at creating a more spread thin population through sprawl. My vision for the city is one of vibrancy, and that vibrancy is created by creating a sense of place that is welcoming and inviting to all of our citizens. We are already working toward consistent land use practices that will affect everyone in every corner of our community, and I think that we need to support that consistency, and we need to always be going back to our master plan and reevaluating it to make sure that we are doing what our citizens have said they want, so that we have a collective vision of what our community could be. Vibrancy to me is providing opportunities for everyone to be able to travel through vehicles or non-vehicular alternatives, walking, biking. We should be creating an environment where everyone has access to roads and to complete streets and to buses, so they can get where they want, whether they require a car or not. I believe that a vibrant community also has amenities that are available for everyone, that it's not just our parks, it's arts, it's culture. I believe that taking pride in the architectural history that we have in our community is a part of what makes it vibrant, and that we need to celebrate what we have instead of letting it fall apart. I believe that the City Council's role in that is to create legislation that is common sense, that supports the business community, that supports the infrastructure needs of businesses that are already here, that may attract others into our community, but that we're not constantly looking for ways to incentivize a cavalry coming. The cavalry's not coming. We have to take care of ourselves. So my job as a legislator is to create opportunities for us to take better care of ourselves. Also, part of that would be looking at the opportunities through our medical campus, because that is our biggest and most fertile opportunity to bring more brains into our community. Within the library system, we are under the state code of ethics. And I won't say that this is a big issue, but I think a lot of people think, well, and this sounds so banal, I'm sure, and maybe a little sophomoric, but at the library, you're working with kids and you're working with people that want to bring you things. They're so thankful for your public service and the customer service you provide, and they want to contribute to you in some way, and it might be a plate of cookies. I've even had people try to tip me, and they don't understand that, one, I'm just happy to do my job, but two, it's just not ethical. And while that's not a big dilemma to me, I've had to think about the long-term issue of if we didn't have ethical standards, and some grandma's coming in one day and it's just a plate of chocolate chip cookies, but the next time that she loses a book, just thinks you're going to look the other way and write it off. And books might sound like a $10 thing from Amazon, but we do have collections of materials that could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. So if something did get damaged, it could be a really big deal. Most of those are reference books, but there might be like a $30 to $50 book that goes out like a cookbook and comes back with sauce on it, and now someone owes money for it. So what if I didn't have the ethical standards I did? It could be an issue, and it could be a slippery slope that could affect things beyond that.